Mortal Kombat is a rare example of a fighting game series where the story is a crucial part of the experience. Over the course of over 3 decades and across nearly a dozen mainline installments, not to mention multiple spin-offs, the franchise has continued to place an increasingly large emphasis on its lore, characters, and narrative. And with multiple timelines, thousands of years of backstory, a massive and rotating cast of crucial characters, and countless conflicts between more than just a few factions, it's gotten to a point where, pretty much by design, it's become an absolute behemoth of narrative content, especially if you're talking about pure volume. With last year's Mortal Kombat 1, the franchise rebooted itself yet again, and is set to continue telling the story of a new universe with its upcoming expansion, Khaos Reigns. As we know all too well about Mortal Kombat by now, however, even in spite of the multiple reboots, the series never quite loses its connective narrative tissues across timelines. As such, here we're going to take a deep dive into the franchise and recount its entire story, from beginning to end, in as much detail as possible. Keep in mind that this is an updated version of a multi-part story recap we did for the entire Mortal Kombat series prior to the release of Mortal Kombat 1, which we have since updated to include the game's story events, and briefly touch on what the upcoming Khaos Reigns expansion is set to bring to the table. This makes this video a major update, and a must-watch for players who are interested to know all the events that happened before Khaos Reigns. With all that out of the way then, let's get started. To understand Mortal Kombat's story, we have to back up to the very beginning. The beginning of what? Well, everything. Upon the beginning of time, before the universe even existed, there existed 3 entities, the one being the Elder Gods and Titans. The Titans, however, won't figure into the larger story for a while yet. The one being's rule lasted an impossibly long time, though it did not go on forever, because eventually, there arrived a point where the Elder Gods decided that a change was needed. Using their powers, they made 6 incredible powerful weapons, relics known as Kamidagu, that had the power to make and unmake reality and tear the very fiber of existence. If wielded by the wrong hands, using the Kamidagu, the Elder Gods were able to defeat the One Being, though its defeat wasn't absolute. The One Being was split apart into 6 different pieces, and though it was gone, its spirit and consciousness still lingered on in those pieces. This also went hand in hand with the creation of 6 different realms, different planes of existence scattered throughout the universe, each holding one of the Kamidagu as well as a piece of the One Being's consciousness. These 6 realms were Earther Realm, which, as its name suggests, is our Earth. Outworld, a realm ruled by warfare and populated by barbaric tribes that are always in conflict. Edenia, a lush and fertile world of peace and beauty. Order Realm, a realm where law and order are sacrosanct. Chaos Realm, where anarchy reigns supreme. And Nether Realm, which is literally hell. On top of these 6 main realms, several smaller realms were also created. Though, for the majority of this series recap, we're going to be focusing on these 6. Through the pieces of its consciousness scattered throughout the realms, the One Being continued to exert some limited influence, through which it would try and compel the rulers of the realms to invade other realms and merge with them, with its end goal being to have all 6 realms merged into a single world, which in turn would bring about its return to its true form. And sure enough, plenty of conflict ensued between the realms, prompting the Elder Gods to come up with a solution that would help them keep these conflicts in check. The Elder Gods enacted a martial arts elimination tournament that they called Mortal Kombat, that the purpose of which was essentially to regulate invasions and mergers of realms. The concept of Mortal Kombat came with a number of hard and fast rules, chief among them being that if a realm can, through its chosen champion, win 10 tournaments in a row, it would have the right to merge with the losing realm. Mortal Kombat could, however, only be invoked once every 50 years, and if it was invoked, the defending realm would not have the option to refuse it. The creation of the Mortal Kombat tournament surely regulated invasions and mergers, but it did not stop them. One realm in particular that proved to be extraordinarily hungry for war and conquest was Outworld. Initially under the rule of its original rule, known as Onaga, the Dragon King, it grew in power, with Onaga uniting all of Outworld's warring tribes and factions due to the threat of invasion from Netherrealm. Eventually, Onaga was betrayed by his trusted advisor, Shao Kahn, who would go on to poison his master and take control of Outworld for himself. Under Shao Kahn's rule, Outworld invaded and conquered a number of territories, but its biggest victory would come with the invasion of Edenia. Intending to merge the lush, gleaming realm with Outworld and bring it under his control, Shao Kahn invoked Mortal Kombat, and after winning 10 tournaments in a row in spite of Edenia sending its best champions forward, Outworld merged with the realm and took control of it. In doing so, Shao Kahn killed Edenia's ruler, King Jarrett, took his wife Sindel as his queen, and at her behest adopted their daughter, Kitana, as his own. Kitana would go on to be put through rigorous training, following which she would become Shao Kahn's personal guard and elite assassin. Of course, with Edenia in his grasp, Shao Kahn was now more powerful than ever, and as is often the case with evil supervillains, he was far from satisfied with what he had been able to accomplish. He wanted more than what he already had, more than Edenia. He wanted the jewel of the universe, the realm that he knew would make him and Outworld the undisputed rulers of the universe and make his reign absolute. And so, his attention turned to Earthrealm. Shao Kahn set plans in motion that would allow him to eventually conquer Earthrealm, which of course would need Outworld to win 10 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments against it. For this purpose, Shao Kahn entrusted his advisor, a powerful sorcerer named Shang Tsung, with invoking and winning tournaments against Earthrealm. And though he did go on to win a few tournaments and become crowned champion for each of them, he was unable to put together the streak that Outworld and Shao Kahn needed. That, of course, is because Earth wasn't just going to lie down and not defend itself. Raiden, who had been appointed as the protector of Earthrealm, rallied together the realm's best fighters and formed a secret society known as White Lotus, whose express purpose was to train its fighters and choose champions who would represent and defend the realm in Mortal Kombat tournaments. One such champion was the supremely skilled martial artist known as the Great Kung Lao, who defeated Shang Tsung in one particular tournament and became its champion, successfully defending Earth. The Great Kung Lao showed mercy, however, and decided to let Shang Tsung live, which proved to be a mistake because Shang Tsung would then go on to decide that if he was to fulfill Shao Kahn's wishes and deliver Earthrealm to him, he would need to up his game and string together 10 Mortal Kombat victories as soon as possible. For this purpose, Shang Tsung chose a new champion to fight in his stead, Goro, the prince of a half-human, half-dragon race from the Outworld known as Shokan. Not only did he have 4 arms and also incredible and terrifying strength to match, Goro would go on to kill the Great Kung Lao, and proved so powerful that he was able to string 9 Mortal Kombat victories together. That meant Outworld needed just one more victory to be able to successfully conquer Earthrealm. With the fate of Earth hanging in the balance, Raiden, knowing how much was at stake, chose 3 warriors to represent and defend the realm alongside him in the next Mortal Kombat tournament: Shaolin monk and former White Lotus warrior Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, who is a Hollywood star and a skilled martial artist with a point to prove, and Special Forces agent Sonya Blade, who's on the hunt for a man named Kano, who's part of a criminal mercenary organization known as the Black Dragon. Outworld, meanwhile, would also be represented by 4 warriors: Goro, now hungrier than ever to assert his dominance over all foes and unwilling to stop at anything to win a 10th straight tournament; the aforementioned Kano, harboring secret notions to infiltrate Shang Tsung's palace and steal its vast stockpiles of gold; Scorpion, a skilled assassin of the Shirai Ryu clan of ninjas; and Sub-Zero of the Lin Kuei clan of ninjas, and also an assassin. We're now entering the original Mortal Kombat story, but before we do need to lay some groundwork for those latter 2 characters in particular, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, who, to put it mildly, have massive beef with each other. We'll be going into much greater detail about the long and complicated history of these 2 characters and the origins of their conflict in future parts. But for now, here's what you need to know. The Shirai Ryu and Lin Kuei clans are locked in a furious feud, which ultimately culminated in the complete destruction of the Shirai Ryu clan and the death of Scorpion. Scorpion was eventually brought back to life, and believing that Sub-Zero was responsible for his death and the destruction of his clan, swore vengeance against him. As such, killing Sub-Zero was primarily why Scorpion agreed to fight for Outworld in the tournament, knowing that his rival would be there as well. Sub-Zero, meanwhile, was there because he had been secretly hired by his clan to kill Shang Tsung. Why exactly? Again, we'll get to that in future parts. But yeah, now we've finally arrived at the events of the original Mortal Kombat game, which was released over 3 decades ago in 1992. By this time, Goro has been undefeated for 500 years, and Shang Tsung has the tournament in a tight iron grip, to the point where it's become almost completely corrupted and nearly impossible to win for any opposing Outworld. With the realm needing just one tournament victory to bring Earthrealm under its shadow, the forces of Outworld and Earthrealm duke it out in the tournament, and ultimately, Liu Kang was able to defeat all of his foes, including Goro. The Shao Kahn Prince is presumed dead, while newly crowned champion Liu Kang also goes on to challenge and defeat Shang Tsung, who flees to Outworld in defeat. Meanwhile, during the tournament, Scorpion and Sub-Zero also lock horns, and the former is successful in avenging his own death by killing Sub-Zero and sending him to the depths of Netherrealm.
Now, we're going to pause and go back so we can lay the groundwork for the personal arcs of 2 particular characters, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, who are, in many ways, the faces of the Mortal Kombat franchise.
Both belong to different factions, with Scorpion, aka Hanzo Hasashi, being a member of the Shirai Ryu, a clan of Japanese ninjas, and Sub-Zero, also known as Bi-Han, being a member of the Lin Kuei, a clan of Chinese ninjas. These 2 clans, however, have long been embroiled in a fierce rivalry that precedes even that of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, which goes back to the founding of Shirai Ryu, which was created by a man named Takeda, a member of the Lin Kuei, who broke away from the Chinese clan and started his own faction in Japan. This rivalry between the 2 clans goes on to be used as part of the scheming manipulations of a sorcerer named Quan Chi, a man who reports to Shinnok, who was defeated, exiled, and banished thousands of years ago, and has been trapped in Netherrealm ever since. Shinnok tasks Quan Chi with finding and retrieving an ancient amulet, using which he will be able to bend dimensions to his will and break free of Netherrealm. His ultimate goal? To invade and conquer Earthrealm. In order to get his hands on the amulet, Quan Chi hires 2 people separately, with neither being aware that either is also involved. He hires both Scorpion and Sub-Zero to retrieve the amulet for him, hoping to have one as insurance in case the other fails in his task. During his missions, Sub-Zero crosses path with Scorpion and kills him. All of this, of course, happens before the events of the original Mortal Kombat, with Scorpion in the game having returned in undead form, driven only by his need to avenge his death and the death of his clan. Speaking of which, as payment for Sub-Zero upon retrieving the amulet, Quan Chi enables the Lin Kuei to completely decimate the Shirai Ryu, which is why when Scorpion does reanimate, he holds Sub-Zero responsible for everything that he's lost. Of course, as we discussed in part 1 of our recap, when Scorpion and Sub-Zero cross paths again in the tournament, the tables are turned, and this time it's Scorpion who succeeds in killing his nemesis. But that isn't the end of Bi-Han's story, of course. His soul descends into Netherrealm, and there he's encountered by Shinnok himself, who revives him, but not as Sub-Zero, but instead as the shadowy undead wraith who goes by the name Noob Saibot. Under Shinnok's orders and corrupted and controlled by his influence, Noob Saibot returns to the other realms, with his orders for now being to observe Shao Kahn and Outworld's conflict against Earthrealm and bide his time until the return of Shinnok. That's all the time we'll be spending on Shinnok for now, but there's a great deal more of him to come in future parts, so keep his name in mind. For now, however, it's back to Shao Kahn and Outworld, because even though Shang Tsung failed to win a 10th consecutive Mortal Kombat tournament in his stead in the first game, by the time Mortal Kombat 2 kicks off, the Emperor has a new plan in motion. Upon returning to Outworld after his defeat and begging for mercy in front of Shao Kahn, Shang Tsung advised the Emperor to compel Earthrealm to participate in a false Mortal Kombat tournament hosted in Outworld, itself as a part of a larger plan. What plan exactly? We'll get back to that later. For now, let's talk about Mortal Kombat 2, which begins with an attack on Earthrealm led by the terrifying and bloodthirsty Baraka, who is a general of the Takaten Horde and a loyal servant of Shao Kahn,
The attack kills several Shaolin monks, many of whom were known to Raiden and his close friend and fellow martial artist Kung Lao, not to be confused with the Great Kung Lao, who he is in fact descended from. Of course, the attacks also serve as a summons for Earthrealm's warriors to Outworld, where a new Mortal Kombat tournament is being held. And, enraged by their fresh losses, Earth's forces once again head out to participate in the tournament. This time, the forces for both sides are larger than they were in the first game. On the side of Earthrealm, we have a number of familiar faces, including the likes of Raiden, Liu Kang, the defending champion of the Mortal Kombat tournament, and the actor Johnny Cage, who once again joins Liu Kang. Meanwhile, they are also joined by Kung Lao, as well as Major Jackson Briggs, also known as Jax, a US Special Force soldier whose primary purpose of going to Outworld is to find and rescue his partner Sonya Blade, who was captured by Shao Kahn's forces after the events of the first game. Earthrealm also has a few unexpected allies by its side this time, chief among them being Sub-Zero. This, however, is not the Sub-Zero that you know. Bi-Han is of course currently out there as Noob Saibot. Unbeknownst to everyone else, while in his absence, the mantle of Sub-Zero has been taken up by his younger brother, Kuai Liang, who is also a member of the Lin Kuei clan and believes his brother to be dead. This new Sub-Zero is also joined by fellow assassin and close friend Smoke, and both of them have now been tasked by the Lin Kuei to kill Shang Tsung to fulfill a contract, which Bi-Han, the previous Sub-Zero, was unable to do. With Shang Tsung in their crosshairs, the two of them align themselves with the forces of Earthrealm for the purpose of the tournament in Outworld. And what about Outworld's forces? A number of warriors represent Shao Kahn in the tournament, with the sorcerer Shang Tsung once again being one of them. His personal bodyguard Reptile also participates, while Scorpion, who isn't aware that this new Sub-Zero isn't the one he killed in the events of the first game, is hell-bent on killing his sworn enemy again, which sees him allying with the Outworld. Shao Kahn's forces also include Baraka, Goro's successor Kintaro, as well as Kitana, the adopted daughter of Shao Kahn, who has been under his spell since the invasion of Edenia long ago, as well as Mileena, a clone of Kitana made by Shao Kahn. A couple of characters who start the game allied with Outworld do end up switching sides, however. One of them, surprisingly enough, is Scorpion, who learns during the tournament that this Sub-Zero is not the man he previously defeated and is instead an honorable and noble warrior whose brother he killed. Vowing to protect the new Sub-Zero at all costs, Scorpion joins forces with Earthrealm. Someone else who defects from Outworld's side is Kitana. After Shao Kahn's spell on her breaks, she regains her memories of Edenia, of how it was conquered by Outworld, and of her mother Sindel, who is the queen of Edenia, who killed herself not long after the realm was destroyed and merged by Shao Kahn's forces. Kitana and Mileena lock horns after their former defects, and the fight ends with Kitana killing her so-called sister. After that, she's branded a traitor by Shao Kahn, though she manages to escape. During the tournament itself, Jax succeeds in finding and rescuing Sonya while the forces of Earthrealm once again prove victorious. For the second time in a row, it is Liu Kang who's declared champion, after he defeats Shang Tsung, Kintaro, and finally Shao Kahn himself. But though Earthrealm wins the tournament, it turns out that it was a setup by Shao Kahn merely as a distraction, because while their warriors were fighting in the tournament over in Outworld, Shao Kahn was putting the pieces in place to begin a secret invasion of Earthrealm. With the help of Shang Tsung and using ancient magic, Shao Kahn revives Sindel, the former queen of Edenia, bringing her back so that she doesn't have her memories and is instead fully under his influence. However, rather than reviving her on Outworld, he does so on Earthrealm, following which he's able to use her to open a portal to the realm, thus beginning his invasion of Earth. Before we get to the actual invasion though, let's take a diversion and talk about Sub-Zero and Smoke, because the two Lin Kuei assassins are, of course, unsuccessful in their mission to kill Shang Tsung. But not only did they return home empty-handed, after coming back to the clan, things only go from bad to worse for them. Between the events of Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, when Sub-Zero and Smoke return, they find that the Grandmaster of the Lin Kuei has enacted a new policy of sorts. Hoping to create the most lethal and effective warriors for the clan, he has begun the Cyber Initiative, which essentially takes Lin Kuei soldiers and turns them into deadly cyborgs. Some members, like two assassins named Sector and Cyrax, have already been cyberized. But Sub-Zero and Smoke both refuse to go along with the clan's new direction. Both are declared traitors, and though Sub-Zero is able to escape,
Smoke is captured and transformed into a cyborg. But Earthrealm at large has much bigger problems to deal with, of course because Shao Kahn's full-scale attack has now begun, which brings us to the events of Mortal Kombat 3, the game that covers the events of Outworld's invasion and Earthrealm's climactic battle against Shao Kahn. That battle does not begin well for the good guys. Heavy casualties are instantly incurred. Literally billions of souls are lost, and Raiden is able to save and gather only a few survivors, who together form the Earthrealm's resistance against Outworld's overwhelming forces. This includes the likes of Raiden, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Jax, and Sonya Blade, while they're also joined by a couple of newcomers. There's Curtis Stryker, a police officer who emerged as one of the only surviving in an entire bustling metropolis after it was decimated by Outworld's forces. Nightwolf, a powerful Native American warrior who received visions of Shao Kahn's invasion before it happened and has decided to fight to defend Earthrealm. And Kabal, a mysterious soldier with superhuman speed, who was once a member of the Black Dragon and now lives with a heavily scarred face and needs constant use of a respirator to breathe. Believing that Kano, who of course is also a Black Dragon member, is responsible for his current condition, Kabal is out for revenge. Kano, meanwhile, has sided with the Outworld forces, with his enemies Jax and Sonya still hot on his tail, as they have been for a while. Meanwhile, Sub-Zero has joined Earthrealm's forces, as well as Scorpion, who has of course sworn to protect Kuai Liang. Sub-Zero runs into a few hairy situations of his own in Mortal Kombat 3, with the Lin Kuei having programmed the cyberized versions of Cyrax, Sector, and Smoke to hunt down and kill him. However, Smoke eventually is able to get back in touch with his human self, and remembering his friendship with Sub-Zero helps him in fighting and defeating the Lin Kuei cyborgs. Outworld's forces, meanwhile, have plenty of deadly customers for the Earthrealm's warriors to deal with, like Ermac, a mysterious entity devoid of all emotion who is, in a nutshell, an embodiment of combinations of a number of souls who were destroyed in many wars throughout the Outworld's history, only to be brought back and combined together in one singular body, under Shao Kahn's control and command. He's joined by the Shokan Shiva, and Rain, a treacherous former Edenian prince now serving Outworld. Then there's Motaro, a centaur and the head of Shao Kahn's forces, handed the responsibility of eliminating Earthrealm's resistance. Meanwhile, Shao Kahn has also sent one of his most highly trained spies and assassins, Jade, to track down and kill Kitana, following her betrayal in the previous game. It just so happens, however, that Jade and Kitana are lifelong friends, and eventually the two of them, with Rain by their side, joined forces with Earthrealm in its attempts to drive out Outworld. Ultimately, against all odds, the forces of Earthrealm are proven victorious once again. Liu Kang and Shao Kahn once again lock horns in a furious battle, which ends with the former emerging victorious once again. In defeat, a severely wounded and weakened Shao Kahn retreats, and with the forces of Outworld driven out, Earthrealm is saved at last. Shao Kahn's defeat also results in the realm of Edenia being freed of Outworld's control after thousands of years in subjugation, while his influence on the revived Sindel also breaks. With her memories restored, she retakes her place as the queen of the now revived Edenia. And that's where Mortal Kombat 3 ends, with Shao Kahn's defeated once again and for all, well, for now anyway, and Outworld's plan to merge Earthrealm failing after literally centuries of attempts. But of course, Earthrealm's problems are far from over, because though Shao Kahn is defeated, another terrifying force is about to rise again. Remember Shinnok, who was trapped in Netherrealm and has been biding his time for who knows how long to return to the forefront and destroy Earthrealm? Yeah, he's gonna be back soon, and he's not exactly the most cheerful guy.
In terms of pure status, especially on paper, Shinnok is a bigger threat than Shao Kahn ever was, despite the latter being a bloodthirsty, warmongering, tyrannical ruler who conquered and merged many realms. Even back when the realms were still relatively young, Shinnok had his eyes set on Earthrealm. Wanting to be his ruler but knowing that he would face heavy opposition, he set out in secret to devise ways that would help him invade and conquer the realm without breaking the rules. From those machinations emerged Shinnok's amulet, which would allow him to weaken the barriers between dimensions and successfully enter Earthrealm. It was this same amulet that Shinnok's servant, the sorcerer Quan Chi, hired Sub-Zero and Scorpion to retrieve in Mortal Kombat mythology's Sub-Zero, which Quan Chi ultimately succeeded in, only to hand a replica of the amulet to his master at the end, keeping the original for himself in secret. We'll get back to that in a while though. For now, let's stay focused on the story at hand, which happened millions of years ago. With his newly created amulet, Shinnok invaded Earthrealm, sparking a war against the realm and its defenders. During this war, Shinnok's primary opponent was Raiden, the appointed protector of Earthrealm. With both sides incurring heavy losses, Earthrealm, for instance, saw the extinction of its dominant indigenous species, the Saurians, with the Dino people being almost completely wiped out by Shinnok and his forces. Millions of years later, during the present Mortal Kombat storyline, Reptile is the last surviving individual of this species. Even so, though the Saurians were wiped out, Raiden was able to defeat Shinnok. In the aftermath, Shinnok was banished to and imprisoned in the deepest depths of Netherrealm, on top of which he was also stripped of his amulet, which again would go on to be stolen back by Quan Chi in the very distant future. Seething with rage and the humiliation of defeat, Shinnok vowed to one day return and finish what he started with the invasion of Earthrealm and completely conquer it. He bided his time for an interminably long period. In Netherrealm, he was tortured for a long time, but eventually was able to find a loyal servant in Quan Chi. Seeing the value in a sorcerer who could travel between realms without restrictions, Shinnok enlisted the aid of Quan Chi, and with his help, enlisted himself as the ruler of Netherrealm. Later, during the events of the first 3 Mortal Kombat games, he began moving some pieces, manipulating things behind the scenes, in preparation for his return, like sending Quan Chi to retrieve his amulet, or reviving Bi-Han, the former Sub-Zero, as Noob Saibot, and sending him back into the world of the living to serve as his silent spy. Or even paving the way for Shao Kahn's invasion of Earthrealm by helping him revive Queen Sindel's soul and use it to open a portal to Earthrealm to kick off his invasion. It was only after the defeat of Shao Kahn and Outworld in Mortal Kombat 3 that Shinnok decided that it was finally time for him to break free from his permanent banishment in Netherrealm, a realm he now ruled, and kick his ages-long plan for utter domination into gear once again. And thus we arrive at Mortal Kombat 4, which begins with an invasion not of Earthrealm but of Edenia, because that's the realm that all the big bads of this franchise seem to want to focus on first and foremost, unfortunately for its people. With the help of Edenian traitor Tanya, Shinnok invades Edenia and conquers the realm, also kidnapping Kitana and Queen Sindel in the process. And from there he turns his attention to another realm where he has plenty of sworn enemies. Shinnok's assault proves to be a devastating one. The two who manage to survive the ambush and successfully escape are Raiden and Fujin. The latter also made an appearance in Mortal Kombat mythologies and was one of those who protected Shinnok's amulet and was defeated by Sub-Zero. Raiden and Fujin escape to Earthrealm, where Shinnok has now fully turned his focus. Bracing themselves for an imminent invasion from Netherrealm, Raiden and Fujin gather the forces of Earthrealm once again, with the likes of Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, Jax Briggs, and newcomer Kai, a martial artist, coming together to defend their home against this threat. Mortal Kombat 4 has a stacked cast of characters where the bad guys are concerned too, on top of central antagonists like Quan Chi and Shinnok himself. The game also features a number of returning baddies like Goro, the undead Noob Saibot, who is still serving Shinnok, and Reptile, who allies himself with Shinnok in hopes that he'll revive his nearly extinct race. They are, as you would expect, also joined by several newcomers, including an assassin from Outworld who serves as the general of Shinnok's army, the previously mentioned Tanya, the Edenian traitor, and Jarek, who's believed to be the last surviving member of the Black Dragon, with Kano being believed dead at this point. Kano's apparent death, emphasis on apparent, at the hand of Jax Briggs was shown in the spin-off titled Mortal Kombat Special Forces, which, incidentally, was also the game where Jarek made his debut. Special Forces ended with Jax almost completely wiping out the Black Dragon, including killing Kano, but not really. But though Jarek was defeated as well, he managed to narrowly escape, following which he is allied with Shinnok in Mortal Kombat 4. Several other characters were also added to the MK4 roster, with the expanded re-release, Mortal Kombat Gold, which brought the likes of Cyrax, who was restored back to his human form, Kung Lao, Kitana, Melina, Sector, who was a hidden character, and Baraka into the fold once again. Scorpion returns in Mortal Kombat 4 as well, though his story takes a bit of an unexpected turn. Once again, twisted by the manipulations of Quan Chi, Scorpion is led into believing that Sub-Zero, the current Sub-Zero, did indeed have a hand in the destruction of the Shirai Ryu clan. Of course, Scorpion is aware that this Sub-Zero is not Bi-Han, his sworn enemy, whom he already killed in the original Mortal Kombat game. Following that, Bi-Han was revived by Shinnok as Noob Saibot, while his younger brother, Kuai Liang, took up his mantle as the new Sub-Zero. As we discussed in Part 2 of our series recap, when Scorpion learned about this and saw that the new Sub-Zero was an honorable warrior whose brother he had killed, he swore to protect him, just as he had once sworn to kill his older brother. In spite of that vow, however, Quan Chi manages to pull Scorpion's strings in Mortal Kombat 4 to once again pit him against Sub-Zero. The two clash in Goro's lair, and Scorpion is on the verge of victory and dealing a killing blow, only for Sub-Zero somehow finding a way to convince him in the nick of time that he had nothing to do with the death of his family and clan. Quan Chi arrives on the scene at this point, and believing that his foes are soon going to be dead thanks to Shinnok anyway, reveals to Scorpion at long last that it was him who orchestrated the destruction of the Shirai Ryu at the hands of the Lin Kuei. Scorpion, finally knowing the full truth of the situation and determined to avenge his clan's death, turns his attention on Quan Chi. The sorcerer attempts to flee, but Scorpion's rage knows no bounds, and he chases him all the way to Netherrealm. We're going to leave it there for now, but we'll be returning to Scorpion and Quan Chi in just a bit, so keep this stuff in mind. For the time being, let's go back to Earthrealm and its fight against Shinnok and his forces. Well, actually, there isn't much more to talk about here because we're basically wrapping things up on Mortal Kombat 4. The forces of Earthrealm manage to defeat Shinnok and drive his minions back. Shinnok is banished to Netherrealm for a second time, with Liu Kang emerging as Earthrealm's defender once again, as the one to finally defeat Shinnok in combat. At the end, Earthrealm and Edenia are both freed, while by this point, well before this point in fact, Earthrealm has also established the Outworld Investigation Agency, formed as an arm of the US Special Forces, under the leadership of Sonya and Jax. OIA's primary purpose is to protect Earth against interdimensional threats, of which there's obviously no shortage in the Mortal Kombat universe. OIA also counts among its members Cyrax, after he has been rescued from his cyberized form and restored to humanity by Sonya and Jax, of course, and Kenshi, a blind warrior who's on the hunt for Shang Tsung as part of his personal quest for revenge. Another crucial tidbit that we need to touch on before we move on from Mortal Kombat 4, after the defeat of Shinnok, Raiden appoints Fujin to replace him as the new protector of Earthrealm. And from here we come to Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, the fifth mainline game in the franchise, and return to Scorpion and Quan Chi's battle, which, interestingly enough, is where the game begins. In Goro's lair, after revealing to Scorpion that it was him who orchestrated the destruction of his clan, Quan Chi banishes him to Netherrealm, but Scorpion, driven by pure fury, drags the sorcerer down with him. When they arrive in Netherrealm, Quan Chi attempts to flee, with Scorpion giving chase and using Shinnok's amulet, which, as we mentioned previously, he had secretly kept for himself after giving his master a fake. Quan Chi manages to open up a portal and escape. He arrives in Outworld, where he finds himself in a mysterious massive crypt, and makes a startling discovery. He finds the mummified remains of a massive army, which he finds out is the long-dead army of Outworld's former ruler, the terrifying Onaga, better known as the Dragon King. As we covered in Part 1 of our series recap, Onaga was poisoned and killed by his most trusted lieutenant Shao Kahn, who would go on to replace him as the Emperor of Outworld. Quan Chi, whose sights are ever sight high, realizes that he can use this army to rule the realms and defeat his enemies, and he goes to fellow sorcerer Shang Tsung with his proposal. He tells him that he will provide him with an endless supply of souls if Shang Tsung can transport some of the souls of fallen warriors into the mummies of the Dragon King's armies to revive them in full. And thus the titular deadly alliance between Quan Chi and Shang Tsung is formed. Together, the two create the supernatural phenomenon known as a Soulnado, which accomplishes both objectives at once, both reviving Onaga's army and supplying Shang Tsung with an endless supply of souls to consume. Consuming these souls, of course, also results in a gargantuan increase in his powers, as well as a significant reversal of his aging and physical condition. With an army now under their control, Quan Chi and Shang Tsung identify two key threats that they will need to take out of the equation so they don't throw a wrench in their plans. The first is Liu Kang, Earthrealm's greatest warrior, and the second is Shao Kahn, the Emperor of Outworld. Shao Kahn, who has been struck with paranoia ever since the humiliation of his defeat against Earthrealm. They are successful in killing Liu Kang, snapping his neck and consuming his soul, while they also kill Shao Kahn, though unbeknownst to them, the one they've killed is really just a clone, with the real Shao Kahn still out there. That, however, is something that's only revealed in the next game, Mortal Kombat Deception, so let's file that away for now. And thus the Deadly Alliance's assault on Earthrealm begins. Raiden, who served as the realm's protector for countless millions of years, is obviously none too pleased about this and urges the Elder Gods to intervene and stop the Deadly Alliance and the Dragon King's revived army. They, however, very rarely intervene in the conflicts between realms, and once again they refuse to do so. Disgusted by their inaction, Raiden arrives at Earth in hopes of helping it fight back against its would-be invaders. Once again, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance features a stacked cast of characters on both sides of the conflict, featuring plenty of familiar faces and newcomers alike. Where the latter are concerned, one of Deadly Alliance's more important introductions, at least as far as the game's story is concerned, is Su Hao, a longtime member of the Special Forces and OIA who is actually an undercover agent of the Red Dragon, on the orders of Mavado, one of the highest-ranking Red Dragon members. As part of the group's long-standing enmity with the Black Dragon, Su Hao uses a nuclear warhead to destroy the OIA's portal, preventing its agents from being able to travel across dimensions. That, as you might expect, has significant consequences in Earthrealm's conflict against Quan Chi and Shang Tsung. Other key new introductions in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance include the likes of previously mentioned Kenshi, Draman, a Netherrealm Oni who was abandoned and left in the realm by his former ally Quan Chi, and is now out for revenge. Draman's ally Moloch, Nitara, a vampire who is seeking to free her realm, Veternus, from the clutches of Outworld after years of subjugation. Li Mei, a native of Outworld whose people have been enslaved by the Deadly Alliance and its conquest, fellow Outworld native, and Bo Rai Cho, a former ally of Liu Kang. There's also Blaze, who's a secret character. Of course, the game's roster features plenty of returning characters as well. There's Kung Lao, who has vowed to avenge the death of his friend Liu Kang, Scorpion, who returns from Netherrealm and continues his hunt for Quan Chi, Jax, who has a score to settle with Su Hao, whom he views as a traitor, and Sonya, who returns as well. Cyrax, who along with Kenshi is abandoned on Outworld, thanks to the OIA's portal having been destroyed, and Kano, who, to no one's surprise, is not dead after all. Returning characters include Johnny Cage, Kitana, Reptile, and Sub-Zero. By this point, Sub-Zero has revived the Lin Kuei, and now serves as the Order's Grand Master. He's also taken under his wing a student in Frost, another newcomer. Though a fierce and capable warrior, she's also arrogant and displays a consistent lack of humility. Being his protege, Sub-Zero tries to teach her all he can while trying to make sure she sticks to the right path, but Frost, having designs on becoming the Grand Master of the Lin Kuei, eventually comes into conflict with her master. Their confrontation ends with Frost's defeat and apparent death, though Sub-Zero forgives her for her actions in the aftermath and lays her body to rest in a sarcophagus. Back to the story at hand. Earthrealm's defense against the Deadly Alliance doesn't go too well. It goes horribly, in fact, with a number of crucial characters dying in the battle against Quan Chi, Shang Tsung, and the revived army of the Dragon King, which they control, which, in turn, is thanks to their possession of Shinnok's amulet and the powers it holds. These casualties include the likes of Kitana, Sonya, Jax, Johnny Cage, and Kung Lao. Raiden is the only one who survives, and though he does try to fight against Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, the sorcerers are able to defeat him.
Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance ends on this dour note, and the next game in the series, Mortal Kombat Deception, picks up pretty much exactly where its predecessor ends. Before we dive into its story, however, it's important to first turn back the clock and set up some other important information that'll come into play going forward.
One character in particular that proves to be central to Mortal Kombat Deception's story, Shujinko, whose story actually begins long before the events of the series proper. Decades ago, in fact, while Shao Kahn's rule was thriving and at the peak of its powers at this point in time, the former Outworld Emperor Dragon King Onaga was seething in his centuries-long imprisonment of death, orchestrated by the treachery of Shao Kahn, who turned on him and killing him. Driven by vengeance and his lingering ambitions of conquest, Onaga started putting his plans in place, hoping to one day return to the world of the living by assimilating what was left of his soul with the physical form of someone else, and taking control of their body. After that, he meant to continue his conquest of all the realms and reshape them as he saw fit. And to do that, he knew he would need the power of something known as the Kamidogu relics. As we covered in part 1 of our series recap, they were 6 relics, ancient and all-powerful weapons. The relics were then scattered throughout the realms, but being fully aware of their power to make and unmake reality itself, Onaga knew that if he could get his hands on all of them together, he would be able to reshape all the realms in his own image, and so he set his eyes on the aforementioned Shujinko, who, at this point, was a young and promising warrior on Earthrealm. Appearing to Shujinko as Damashi, Onaga tricked the warrior into carrying out his mission for him. Onaga told him to find and gather the 6 relics and bring them to the Nexus, a unique realm that existed between realms, and said that this would allow the champion to be able to travel between realms more easily. In exchange, Onaga gave Shujinko the ability to absorb the knowledge and fighting skills of whomever he wished, and with this gift, Shujinko set off on his quest. But traveling to 6 different realms and tracking down the ancient, powerful relics took quite some time, as you would imagine. Decades passed, and around the same time that Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance's events were taking place, and Shang Tsung and Quan Chi had managed to revive the Dragon King's undead mummified army, Shujinko finally completed his mission. After getting his hands on the 6th and final relic in Edenia, he traveled to the Nexus, though it wouldn't be long before he would realize just what he had unwittingly been involved in and made possible almost single-handedly, because this was where Onaga returned. Before we get to that, however, let's pause and go back once again, this time all the way back to when Onaga was still the ruler of Outworld and Shao Kahn was still his loyal servant. At this time, with his warring empire at the peak of its powers, Onaga devised a plan that would allow him to effectively become immortal. Using the powerful magic of his followers, Onaga cast a spell on a dragon egg, and not just any dragon egg, but the egg of a dragon from the very first generation of the species. And what exactly did the spell do? Well, it essentially transferred his soul into the embryo inside the egg, so that Onaga would be reborn in the body of an elder dragon when the egg hatched millions of years later. The long time afterward, during the events of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, due to a tangled web of events, it just so happened that when the egg hatched, the ever so unfortunate reptile was there. Onaga grabbed this opportunity with both hands and assimilated his tiny dragon body with that of reptile, thus being fully reborn in full physical form, ready to be able to step out into the world again and resume his bloody conquest. And so it was that when Shujinko brought all 6 relics together at the Nexus, Onaga arrived at the scene and revealed to him the true nature of his decades-long quest, and how he had been manipulated into helping the Dragon King come achieve his goals. Taking all 6 relics for himself, Onaga declared that all he needed now was the power contained within Shinnok's amulet, which is in Quan Chi's possession at this point in time, and that using its powers in conjunction with the powers of the relics would finally allow him to take control of and reshape all of the realms however he saw fit. Feeling betrayed and horrified at what he had unwittingly been involved in for most of his life, Shujinko escaped, traveling back to Earthrealm, vowing to defeat Onaga. And now we finally arrive at the events of Mortal Kombat Deception, which, as you may have guessed, sees the Dragon King starring as the main villain. But what of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, may you ask, especially after all the havoc their deadly alliance unleashed on all of the realms and their inhabitants? Well, let's get to that, shall we? As MK Deception kicks off, Raiden stands alone against Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, who have killed almost all of those who have stood against them. But even though they are victorious, that victory proves to be short-lived. Almost instantly, the two of them turn on each other and start fighting over the ownership of Shinnok's amulet, since whoever has the amulet has the ability to control the Dragon King's revived army. In the fight that follows, Quan Chi emerges as the victor, but almost as if on cue, Onaga arrives on the scene. Momentarily, Quan Chi, Shang Tsung, and Raiden forget all of the enmity they have between each other, and realizing that Onaga is a far bigger threat, they band together to fight against him. All of their efforts prove useless, however, and it's not long before they realize that the Dragon King is too powerful for all of them, even with all of their powers combined. In a desperate last-ditch attempt to destroy Onaga, at this point, Raiden summons every last shred of his powers and releases them in a single nuclear-level explosion. As you might imagine, that destroys everything in the vicinity and kills Raiden himself, Quan Chi, and Shang Tsung. Onaga, however, emerges unscathed, and now also holds Shinnok's amulet in his possession. Meanwhile, though Raiden has very much disintegrated, he isn't completely dead. His lingering essence finds its way back to Earthrealm, where it's able to regather and revive him, though not without some drastic changes. Corrupted by his encounter with the Dragon King and tainted by his evil magic, Raiden is revived as Dark Raiden, which is exactly what it sounds like, a darker, more ruthless version of Raiden, who has now quickly come to despise the inhabitants of Earthrealm, how they take his protection for granted, and how little they do to protect their own realm. In his new form, Raiden now swears to protect Earthrealm by any means necessary, even if he has to do it against people he once considered his allies, regardless of who he has to kill and how many people he has to kill. To aid him in his efforts, Raiden also revives Liu Kang, though he too comes back not exactly himself. The Liu Kang that returns is no longer the noble warrior he was in life, but a mindless undead servant bound to Raiden's will. Ultimately, however, it's Shujinko, not Raiden or Liu Kang, who turns out to be the one to defeat the Dragon King. While Onaga was rallying his supporters on Outworld and searches for a way that would allow him to fuse all 6 relics together, Shujinko was working towards his own goals as well. In his final fight against Onaga, he uses the very powers that the Dragon King had once granted to him, absorbing the combined fighting powers of a number of warriors, many of whom were new introductions in Mortal Kombat Deception, including Kira and Cobra, who are new Black Dragon recruits, Darius, a resistance leader who's fighting against Onaga's forces, and Dairu, a mercenary from Order Realm, which is where Darius is from as well. Absorbing all of their powers, Shujinko's own abilities expand massively, more than even the Dragon King himself could have anticipated. And with these abilities at his disposal, Shujinko shatters all 6 relics, and since the relics were what made Onaga invincible, that leaves him vulnerable as well. Shujinko strikes a final blow, which quite literally blows Onaga's soul out of Reptile's body, freeing the Saurian from his control. Meanwhile, the Dragon King's soul winds up in Netherrealm, where it is sealed once again, this time by Nightwolf. That wraps up the story of Mortal Kombat Deception, and brings us to the events of its successor, Mortal Kombat Armageddon, which is also the final game in the series' original timeline. Before we get to its story, however, we need to jump back in time again. This time we turn our attention to the realm of Edenia, and a couple of key characters in particular. Argus from Edenia, his wife, the sorceress Delia, and their sons, Taven and Dagon. Of particular interest to us here is Delia, who, thanks to the power of foresight, was able to see with absolute certainty something that had a very real chance of coming to pass in the distant future. Some time after Onaga was originally betrayed and poisoned by Shao Kahn, Delia had a vision of a distant apocalyptic event, Armageddon itself, which she predicted would happen due to the combatants of all the realms becoming so powerful that they would eventually tear the fabric of reality apart. As a way to prevent this cataclysm of all the realms and everything in them, Delia and Argus came up with a plan. Delia foresaw that the fateful final battle at the end of everything would take place in a crater on Edenia, so at this very spot, Argus built a massive underground pyramid within which he and Delia stored the Blaze, a slumbering file elemental created by the sorceress who would have unimaginable power and would be the means to prevent Armageddon. Elsewhere, however, Delia and Argus disagreed on how best to deal with the warriors in the future who would threaten all of existence. Delia, knowing that many of them would be good people with noble intentions, wanted to take a lenient approach and essentially strip every single one of the combatants of all of their powers. Argus, on the other hand, wanted to take no risks and thought simply wiping them out of existence in one fell swoop would be the best way forward. Ultimately, the husband and wife decided that they would let their children decide. And how exactly would that work? Taven and Dagon were both put into a deep slumber, to be awoken only when the time for Armageddon was finally at hand. Upon being awakened, both brothers would be tasked with defeating Blaze, and the one to claim victory would become Edenia's new protector. In addition to that, both also had to retrieve a special sword and piece of armor, each with one of them belonging originally to Argus and Delia. If the brother with Delia's equipment defeated Blaze, all of the realm's combatants would be stripped of their powers in order to prevent the destruction of everything, but would still be allowed to keep their lives. However, if one with Argus's gear did the same, all of the combatants would be killed. Both Taven and Dagon were to be woken via a signal from Blaze when Armageddon was at hand. However, Dagon was accidentally woken up much earlier than that, at which point Shinnok was able to manipulate him and turn him to the dark side, so to speak, by identifying Dagon's resentment and jealousy towards his brother as one of his weaknesses. Dagon was then guided into stealing the powerful weapons of his parents and using them to kill Argus and Delia. When Taven would be awoken a long time afterward, at the correct time, unlike his brother, Dagon would be too far gone, and had become completely obsessed with killing Blaze so he could take his power for himself. And now finally we arrive at the events of Mortal Kombat Armageddon itself. In the wake of the events of the previous game, some pretty formidable villains have now lost against the series' heroes, from Shang Tsung and Shao Kahn to Quan Chi and Onaga. However, in MK Armageddon, all of them are brought together under a single banner by Shinnok, with all of them becoming aware of the fact that whoever defeats Blaze will also be granted the Elemental's powers. The villains combine to make the forces of darkness, all working towards a common selfish goal, and are also joined by many other characters from throughout the series, including Scorpion, Dagon, Baraka, Kintaro, Frost, Rain, Kano, Goro, Darius, Melina, Reptile, Sector, and many others. The forces of darkness are not unchallenged in their efforts, of course, and to stand against them, the forces of light emerge as well, with their goal being to defeat Blaze and then use his powers for the betterment of all realms, rather than serving selfish and chaotic purposes. The forces of light also include heroes from throughout the Mortal Kombat series, including Liu Kang, Raiden, Johnny Cage, Jax, Sonya, Sub-Zero, Kitana, Cyrax, Nightwolf, Shujinko, Taven, and many more. True to what Delia saw in her visions long ago, the final battle of Armageddon does indeed end up taking place in the Edenian crater, where the forces of darkness and light clash against each other in an epic battle. A duel between Taven and Dagon happens at the base of the pyramid atop which Blaze rests, and Taven ultimately emerges victorious, which of course means that according to what his parents had planned, he is now destined to climb the pyramid, defeat Blaze, and claim his powers. All combatants on both sides of the conflict start climbing up the pyramid, hoping to be the first to reach the top and claim Blaze's powers. But as fate would have it, the victor isn't anyone Delia and Argus could have predicted all that time ago. Dagon has already been defeated, but Taven doesn't defeat Blaze either. In the end, it's Shao Kahn, the Mortal Kombat franchise's oldest and probably most popular main villain, who claims that prize. With the victory he claims, Shao Kahn wreaks absolute havoc, killing pretty much everybody. All warriors in the forces of darkness and light are killed, and the last one left standing is, once again, Raiden. He's only able to do one seemingly small thing before he too is killed, though that seemingly minuscule action changes the course of, well, everything. Using an amulet, Raiden sends a message back into time, to a past version of his own self. The message simply says, he must win. Mortal Kombat Armageddon's story ends with Shao Kahn's ultimate victory, the death of pretty much every other character in the entire series, and the fulfillment of all of Delia's visions of the apocalypse. Where does the story go from here? What purpose does Raiden's message serve? How is there any coming back from any of this? The franchise answers all of those questions with one very simple word: reboot.
MK 2011's story picks up from this point, but rewinds the clock all the way back to the events of the original Mortal Kombat game, where Outworld has won 9 Mortal Kombat tournaments in a row and is about to win a 10th, which would allow Shao Kahn to merge and take control of Earthrealm. Under Raiden's leadership, Earthrealm's warriors, the likes of Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, and Jax Briggs, are preparing to fight against Outworld champion Goro and the sorcerer Shang Tsung in the upcoming tournament, hoping to save their realm from Shao Kahn's clutches. It's at this point that Raiden receives the message sent to him by his future self, and though he's not quite sure what it means exactly by he must win, he does become aware of the events of the future, and that to prevent Armageddon, he has to decipher the meaning of the message. During the course of the game, Raiden takes several steps as he looks to ensure that events of the past timeline are not repeated in the current one, though more often than not, his attempts end up blowing up in his face. For instance, at this point in time, Scorpion is still very much obsessed with revenge against Sub-Zero and the Lin Kuei, whom he holds responsible for the destruction of his clan, the Shirai Ryu, and the deaths of his wife and child. Raiden, however, receives visions of Scorpion killing Sub-Zero and of the latter returning as Noob Saibot. In response, Raiden goes to Scorpion and asks him to spare Sub-Zero's life. Though Scorpion initially agrees, at the moment of truth, in the aftermath of a fight against Sub-Zero, he's shown visions by Quan Chi of Sub-Zero killing his family, which, as you might imagine, doesn't go down well with Scorpion. Driven by rage, he breaks his promise to Raiden and ends up killing Sub-Zero anyway. Similarly, Raiden also helps the Lin Kuei warrior Smoke in hopes of preventing him from being turned into a cyborg, and though he succeeds, it comes at a cost, with the new Sub-Zero, Kuai Liang, the former Sub-Zero's younger brother, being taken captive by his clan and cyberized instead. Meanwhile, Raiden's attempts to change the future also lead to the death of Kung Lao later in the game. Despite Raiden's best efforts then, things in the new timeline often pan out more or less the way that they had in the original one. For instance, in this timeline, Liu Kang once again defeats Goro and Shang Tsung to break Outworld's streak of consecutive Mortal Kombat victories, and once again, Shang Tsung is able to escape execution at the hands of Shao Kahn when he proposes another Mortal Kombat tournament, this time held on Outworld, just as he did in the original timeline. That, again, ends with Liu Kang being crowned the champion, and yes, that once again leads to Shao Kahn invading Earthrealm through Queen Sindel's revival. Meanwhile, each time Liu Kang is crowned the champion, on both occasions, Raiden's amulet cracks further, suggesting to him that he hasn't succeeded in altering the events the way that he's supposed to. At one point, Raiden also tries to stop Shao Kahn's machinations, but just as in the original timeline, he is unsuccessful. Eventually, however, Raiden is finally able to decipher the meaning of the message that was sent to him by his future self. When Raiden's future self said he must win, he wasn't referring to Liu Kang or Kung Lao or any other potential Earthrealm champion, but rather, surprisingly enough, to Shao Kahn. And how exactly is that supposed to prevent Armageddon from coming to pass? Well, we'll get to that in a bit. When Raiden tells Liu Kang about what he has discovered, however, Liu Kang obviously doesn't take it very well. The idea of letting Shao Kahn win and merge Earthrealm with Outworld isn't one that sits right with him, and so he decides to take on Shao Kahn himself. Raiden, of course, isn't going to let that happen, and in order to stop Liu Kang, he takes him on in combat. The fight that follows is a furious one and ends with Liu Kang's defeat, only for him to stubbornly get back to his feet and keep fighting anyway, at which point Raiden inadvertently ends up killing him. At this point, Shao Kahn finally arrives, and just as he's about to land the killing blow on Raiden, his plan finally comes to fruition. With the Outworld Emperor on the verge of merging Earthrealm with Outworld in spite of not having won 10 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments, he's in breach of the laws, which results in them finally intervening. They grant Raiden special powers, using which he defeats Shao Kahn, who then gets taken away for judgment and punishment. But though the threat of Shao Kahn has passed, Raiden has a feeling he just cannot shake, that the looming threat of Armageddon still lingers in the background, and that some other evil might emerge soon enough to try and make that a reality. And sure enough, Mortal Kombat 2011 ends with the reveal that Quan Chi and Shinnok are ready to step into the void left behind by Shao Kahn and take both Earthrealm and Outworld for themselves. From here, we arrive at the events of Mortal Kombat X, which picks up 2 years after its predecessor. Shinnok is continuing to gather his strength and has even managed to revive the Earthrealm soldiers who fell during the events of MK 2011 as revenants who are slaves to his will. The game begins with a bang, with Shinnok and his Netherrealm forces attacking Earth, where Shinnok is trying to absorb and corrupt the Earthrealm's life force, known as the Jinsei. The likes of Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, Raiden, Fujin, and Kenshi fight against Shinnok, and with the help of Johnny in particular, Raiden is able to successfully steal Shinnok's amulet and trap him inside it. Quan Chi, however, manages to escape with Johnny, Sonya, and Raiden giving a chase all the way to Netherrealm. There, they're able to bring Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Jax back not only to life, but to their actual human forms, though Quan Chi escapes once again. The game's story skips forward 20 years at this point, though plenty of noteworthy things happen in that intervening period. For starters, Johnny and Sonya get married and have a daughter, Cassie, though their marriage doesn't last long and they get divorced. Meanwhile, Jax too has a daughter, Jackie, Then there's Scorpion, who drops that persona and adopts his older name once again, and as Hanzo Asashi, he rebuilds the Shirai Ryu. At the same time, Sub-Zero becomes the Grandmaster of the Lin Kuei, and after extracting crucial data from Sector's memory banks, he's able to prove to Scorpion that it was indeed Quan Chi, not the Lin Kuei clan, who was responsible for the destruction of Scorpion's clan and the death of his family. When Mortal Kombat X's story picks up again 20 years later, both Cassie and Jackie are in the Special Forces as well, having followed their parents' footsteps. Meanwhile, on Outworld, in the absence of Shao Kahn, a new ruler has emerged in Kotal Kahn, who is much less bloodthirsty and takes a much more measured and honorable approach to ruling over the realm. That, in turn, has also led to hostilities between Outworld and Earthrealm being at an all-time low. Outworld, however, has other problems to deal with, which, funnily enough, come from within its own borders. Not everyone is satisfied with Kotal Kahn's rule, and he faces stiff competition in particular from Mileena, who deems herself to be Shao Kahn's heir, and as such, the rightful emperor of the realm. As such, though, Kotal sits on the throne. He's also been dealing with a brewing civil war led by Mileena. Crucially, Mileena has also managed to get her hands on Shinnok's amulet, which was supposed to be under the protection of Earthrealm, and though Kotal eventually succeeds in quashing her rebellion and killing her once and for all, his trust in Earthrealm is shaken, and he decides to keep the amulet with himself so that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands again. That doesn't work out, as you might have guessed. As it turns out, D'Vorah, Kotal's most loyal follower, is revealed to be a double agent working for Quan Chi. And it's not long after Mileena's defeat, and Kotal taking the amulet from her, that D'Vorah steals it for herself and takes it to Quan Chi. At that point, Jax, Kenshi, and Netherrealm's demoness Serena led an urgent attack on Netherrealm, which ends with them successfully making their way to Quan Chi, defeating him, capturing him, and bringing him back to Earthrealm. But again, things only go from bad to worse, because though Quan Chi ends up being beheaded by Scorpion, who finally gets vengeance for his clan and family's death, at the very least, before he dies, he's able to successfully cast a spell that sets Shinnok free again. The defenders of Earthrealm are subdued in the fight that follows, with Shinnok and Quan Chi's Revenant forces proving too overwhelmingly powerful. In addition, Johnny is captured, and Shinnok enters the Jinsei, corrupts it, and transforms into a terrifying demon. A team led by Cassie Cage is still left standing, but as they chase after Shinnok, they are stopped by Kotal, who has been fooled into believing that Earthrealm stole the amulet and used it for itself. But when Cassie tells Kotal what really happened, he doesn't react in the best way possible, to say the least. He decides to kill Cassie and her team in hopes of appeasing Shinnok, which in turn would buy him enough time to head back to Outworld and shore up its defenses in preparation of what will come next. In the nick of time, however, Sub-Zero and the forces of the Lin Kuei clan arrive on the scene and repel Kotal and his Outworld forces, following which Cassie is able to fight and defeat Shinnok, thanks in large part to mysteriously powerful abilities that manifest in her during the fight, something that she seemingly inherits from her father. In the aftermath of Shinnok's defeat, Raiden, who's taken heavy wounds by now, uses his powers to purify the Jinsei once again, which in turn causes Shinnok to lose his own powers. Afterward, Shinnok is taken away and imprisoned once again. The army of Revenants is forced to retreat, and the heroes, the ones who were left standing anyway, are reunited and allowed some measure of respite. Not too much respite though, this is Mortal Kombat after all. It's revealed that the process of purifying the Jinsei corrupting Raiden, turning him into Dark Raiden once again echoing the events of the past timeline. Driven to protect Earthrealm at all costs, Raiden vows to destroy all of his enemies with reckless abandon. And to send that message loud and clear, he ends up beheading Shinnok. That, unfortunately for Raiden and everybody else on the good side, gets the attention of Kronika, the Keeper of Time and the mother of Shinnok. Mortal Kombat X ends with the defeat of Shinnok, though it comes at a heavy price, not only because many lives are lost in the battle leading up to that defeat, but also because Raiden has, by that time, become extremely corrupted by the influence of Shinnok's amulet, and well and truly transformed into Dark Raiden, who will stop at nothing in his goal to protect Earthrealm, regardless of who he has to kill, friend or foe. In his corrupted state after Shinnok's defeat, he also beheads Shinnok as a warning to all of his enemies, though that, unfortunately for pretty much all the good guys in Mortal Kombat universe, finally compels Kronika to take action. And who exactly is Kronika? Well, she's a Titan, the Keeper of Time and the mother of Shinnok. She's also responsible for ensuring that the balance between light and darkness is always maintained. When Raiden killed Shinnok, however, he upset that balance, which has now prompted Kronika to take things into her own hands. To bring things into balance again, she intends to erase the current timeline from existence and replace it with a new era, where she will ensure that Raiden simply doesn't exist to foil her plans again. Before we get to Kronika and the main story of Mortal Kombat 11, however, let's first take a step back and catch up on some of the things that have changed since the events of Mortal Kombat X, because plenty has changed. For instance, by the time Mortal Kombat 11 kicks off, Liu Kang and Kitana, both in their undead revenant forms, are together ruling Netherrealm. Both, of course, died during the events of Mortal Kombat 2011, but were brought back as revenants by Quan Chi in Mortal Kombat X, along with Kung Lao, who was also dead by that point. And though Quan Chi and Shinnok are both out of the picture by now, the corruption tainting the former heroes has only grown. Together, Liu Kang and Kitana now rule over Netherrealm and command an army of undead warriors, and are very much considered a threat to Earthrealm and its people. It's exactly for this reason, in fact, that when Mortal Kombat 11 kicks off 2 years after the events of its predecessor, Raiden approaches Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, Cassie Cage, and Jackie Briggs in a Special Forces base, telling them that Liu Kang and Kitana meant to attack Earthrealm, and that the best way to prevent that would be to launch a preemptive attack against Netherrealm themselves. Johnny is initially reluctant, but eventually the Special Forces agree to helping Raiden. Together, they launch their attacks on Netherrealm, and the results are mixed, to say the least. The castle that serves as Liu Kang and Kitana's base of operations and is also the source of many of their powers is successfully destroyed, and Johnny, Cassie, and Jackie make it back in one piece, though Sonya dies during the attack. To make matters worse, the destruction of the castle proves to be temporary. Not long after the attack, as Revenant Liu Kang and Kitana stand amidst the wreckage, they're approached by Kronika, who uses her powers to reverse time and repair the castle back to its former glory. She tells them of her plan to erase the current timeline and start over from the beginning, and more importantly, tells them that in her new era, Raiden will not exist. Raiden was, incidentally, responsible for the deaths of both Liu Kang and Kitana, and is the reason they currently exist in undead form. After hearing her proposal, they agree to pledge their allegiance to her, along with all of their combined might, the forces of Netherrealm, and multiple other revenants, including the likes of Kung Lao, Jade, and Cabal. And things only go from bad to worse from that point forward. As a result of Kronika messing with the forces of time, past versions of several characters also end up getting pulled into the present, all from a specific point in time during the events of Mortal Kombat 11, when they were in the midst of the second Mortal Kombat tournament in Outworld. The list of past characters who get dragged into the present is a long one, including Liu Kang, Kitana, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, Raiden, Shao Kahn, Kung Lao, Jade, and Kano, among others. This affects Raiden differently than it does all the others. In other words, the rules are a bit different for Raiden. When past Raiden gets pulled into the present, Dark Raiden is erased from existence. The past version of Scorpion 2 gets pulled into the present, and since this version of the character hasn't yet been able to let go of his past and well and truly join the good side of the conflict, he too joins Kronika's forces, after she promises him that in her new era, she will ensure that the Shirai Ryu clan and his family aren't killed. Unsurprisingly, Shao Kahn and his followers agree to fight with Kronika as well. But wait, there's more. Both past and present versions of Kano band together, and under their leadership, the Black Dragon is also enlisted by Kronika. Meanwhile, Sector is also pulled into the present, and under orders from the Keeper of Time, he takes over the Lin Kuei clan and restarts the Cyber Initiative, which of course involves kidnapping Lin Kuei warriors and turning them into cyborgs against their will, all dedicated solely to Kronika's cause. From that point forward, bit by bit, the defenders of Earthrealm chip away at Kronika's combined forces and actually manage to win quite a few victories. For starters, Sub-Zero and present-day Scorpion, who now goes by his actual name Hanzo Asashi, work together to cripple the Cyber Lin Kuei, while the Special Forces, i.e. Cassie, Jackie, past Sonya, and both past and present versions of Johnny, are successful in destroying the Black Dragon and killing Kano, both versions. Meanwhile, over in Outworld, Kitana, Liu Kang, and Kung Lao succeed in defeating Shao Kahn and his followers, at which point Kotal, who is gravely injured after the conflict with Shao Kahn, relinquishes the title of Outworld's ruler to Kitana. Towards the end of Mortal Kombat 11 story mode, the past version of Scorpion switches sides as well, and it's his own present version, Hanzo, who makes him see the light. Hanzo accuses Scorpion of siding with Kronika because of purely selfish reasons, saying that he doesn't care about bringing the Shirai Ryu clan back and only wants to revive his dead family. Hanzo tells him that in Kronika's new era, she will also bring Shinnok back, who in fact was the one who was truly responsible for their deaths, which is what ultimately convinces Scorpion. Hanzo sadly is killed at this point after being poisoned by Devora, but as he dies in his past self's arms, he tells him to go to Earthrealm and help its defenders. When Scorpion arrives at Earthrealm, the welcome he receives is far from warm. Most of all, it's Raiden who takes issue with his presence, believing him to be an agent sent by Kronika. After hearing him out, however, Liu Kang, the past version, not Revenant Liu Kang, tries to stop Raiden, at which point the two engage in a duel. As the fight becomes more furious, however, Raiden sees versions of the past from across multiple different timelines, at which point he's able to finally see the full extent of Kronika's manipulations. In multiple different timelines, she's tried to pit Raiden and Liu Kang against each other, and each time it has resulted in Liu Kang's death. The fight between the two comes to an end, with Raiden apologizing to Scorpion and healing his wounds, before going on to explain what he's learned to the others. At this point, however, things come to a head. Kronika arrives on the scene with Revenant Liu Kang by her side and freezes time. Using her crown and her hourglass together, she intends to finally pull the trigger on the final stages of her plan to rewrite the timeline. Before that, however, she challenges Raiden to face her one final time in Netherrealm, and takes past Liu Kang with her. Revenant Liu Kang ends up killing his past self, absorbing his soul to make himself even stronger. Mortal Kombat 11's story's dramatic conclusion sees all characters converging on Kronika's keep in Netherrealm, where the forces of good and evil collide in an epic clash. During this fight, Raiden faces off against Revenant Liu Kang one final time, and at the end of an intense battle is able to defeat him. Rather than killing Liu Kang, however, Raiden merges himself with the Revenant, and what happens next effectively turns the tide completely in the good guy's favor. Raiden, past Liu Kang, and Revenant Liu Kang are merged together and their powers are combined, while the consciousness of past Liu Kang emerges as the dominant force in that trio, which makes sense seeing as he has, over the course of the Mortal Kombat franchise, saved Earthrealm and defeated the big bads on countless occasions. In a last-ditch attempt to win a losing battle, Kronika turns time all the way back to the prehistoric age, where the only ones left standing are her and Liu Kang. In the fight that follows, the latter emerges victorious, Kronika is killed and her crown is shattered, and back in the present day, Raiden tells Liu Kang that he is now the protector of Earthrealm, and that Raiden will continue to advise him. In addition to that, as the one who killed Kronika, Liu Kang has also become the new Keeper of Time, which means it now falls to him to create a new era. Now we arrive at the events of Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath, which effectively begins where the base game ends, in that Liu Kang ends up using his newfound powers to create a new timeline. To do that, however, he needs to get his hands on Kronika's crown, because her hourglass cannot be used without it. Her crown, of course, has been destroyed, which means that Liu Kang is forced to turn back to a point before her death, and has to send people back to that point to ensure that he gets his hands on that crown. Interestingly enough, the people he sends back are Shang Tsung, Fujin, and Nightwolf. Unsurprisingly, things don't go well for a lot of the good guys. Shang Tsung, being the power-hungry con man that he's always been, ends up taking the crown for himself, and comes within a whisker of becoming the new Keeper of Time. As it turns out, however, Shang Tsung's deviousness is something that Liu Kang very much counted on, knowing that he would get his hands on the crown, following which he could then take it for himself. Liu Kang arrives and does just as much, defeating Shang Tsung and taking the crown. Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath ends with Liu Kang using the crown and the hourglass to create his new era, with Kung Lao as the new champion. This is most likely not the Kung Lao that's appeared in most games, but is rather the Great Kung Lao. And that, of course, is where Mortal Kombat 1 comes in.
Mortal Kombat 1 picks up after the events of Aftermath. Liu Kang has defeated Kronika, he has defeated Shang Tsung, and using Kronika's hourglass as the new Keeper of Time, he has an entirely new universe, one that he hopes will be a much more peaceful one than the others he's lived through. Once that universe was done, he gave up his newfound powers as a Titan and passed the responsibility to Geras. One of the things he does is establishes a tenuous alliance of sorts with Outworld, and he does that by establishing regularly held Mortal Kombat tournaments, which, in this universe, serve as a symbol of peace between the two realms, even if it is a fragile one. When Mortal Kombat 1's story picks up, we find ourselves in Outworld, and the first character the game shines the spotlight on is Shang Tsung, though perhaps not in the form we've been familiar with over the years. Though he's always been a powerful and devious sorcerer in previous timelines of the series, in Liu Kang's new era, he doesn't have any of his old abilities, and this new Shang Tsung is little more than a common swindler and a con man who lives off of scamming as many people as he can with so-called cures and remedies that don't do much of anything. One fateful night, however, he is approached by a mysterious woman in the shadows, who tells him that she will make him a powerful sorcerer if he joins forces with her. Naturally, Shang Tsung agrees. Meanwhile, back on Earthrealm, with the next Mortal Kombat approaching, Liu Kang is on the lookout for new champions who will represent the realm, and he finds several of them. Raiden and Kung Lao are young farmhands and students of martial arts in this universe, both of whom get recruited. Then there's Johnny Cage, a failing actor who's struggling to revive his career and seems to have just as many problems in his personal life with his wife, Christina. Things become even more complicated for him when he's attacked by former Yakuza member Kenshi Takahashi, a descendant of the long-dead Taira clan, who has come to reclaim a katana named Sento from Johnny's mansion. Sento, as it turns out, was one of Johnny's many extravagant and ill-advised purchases, and used to belong to the Taira clan. Johnny takes on Kenshi in combat and is able to defeat him, but proceedings are interrupted when Liu Kang arrives on the scene, accompanied by the Lin Kuei clan's Grandmaster Bi-Han, aka Sub-Zero, his youngest brother Kuai Liang, aka this universe's Scorpion, and fellow Lin Kuei warrior Smoke. After Liu Kang explains the situation to Johnny and Kenshi, he's able to defuse the situation, after which he recruits both of them to also represent Earthrealm in the upcoming Mortal Kombat tournament. Following that, Raiden, Kung Lao, Johnny, and Kenshi spend several months training with Shaolin monks at the Wuxi Academy, and prior to the tournament's commencement, Raiden emerges as the Earthrealm's ultimate champion, and is given electricity powers by Liu Kang, mirroring the powers he used to have in previous timelines. With a champion selected, Liu Kang leads his followers to Outworld through a portal. And what exactly is the state of Outworld in this new era? Well, it's pretty different from previous timelines. For starters, it is ruled by Empress Sindel, whose husband, King Jared, was killed many years prior. Their daughters, Katana and Melina, are princesses of the realm, with the latter being the heir to the throne. Interestingly enough, however, Melina is not only the heir apparent, she is also inflicted by a debilitating disease that Outworld's royal family keeps secret from everyone. Remember Tarkatans, the Outworld race of warriors from past timelines? Well, in this universe, Tarkat is a disease that horribly disfigures anyone who contracts it, and all who are infected, known as Tarkatans, are banished to the wastes of Outworld. And what of Shao Kahn? Well, obviously with Sindel being the Empress, he isn't the Khan of Outworld. Instead, he goes by General Shao and leads Sindel's armies. For all of those differences, however, he still seems pretty antagonistic towards anyone and everyone from Earthrealm, in part because he was told by a mysterious sorcerer that Liu Kang intends to invade Outworld and conquer it in Earthrealm's name. That's a concern that Shao has brought up with Sindel as well, though up to this point, in the absence of any concrete evidence, the Empress has refused to believe him. Now, back to the story at hand, the Mortal Kombat tournament commences, and Raiden, in spite of youth and lack of experience of any real combat, emerges victorious, defeating a number of Outworld champions, including the likes of Li Mei, Reiko, Katana, who fights in her unwell sister's stead, and General Shao himself. In the aftermath of the tournament, however, Liu Kang makes a startling discovery. He's told by Geras that somehow Shang Tsung has managed to regain many of his abilities. Concerned at how Shang Tsung was able to carve his way out of the meaningless existence he had devised for himself, Liu Kang asks Geras to keep looking into the situation, and later asks Johnny Cage, Kenshi, and Kung Lao to head back into Outworld, find and capture Shang Tsung, and bring him back for questioning. It doesn't take the trio long to track down their quarry. They find Shang Tsung in a Tarkaton encampment, where they witness him painfully extracting the bone marrow of a captive Baraka, the de facto leader of the Tarkatons. As they intervene, chaos ensues, and though Shang Tsung manages to escape by using his newfound shape-shifting abilities, Johnny, Kenshi, and Kung Lao are able to convince Baraka to help them, after which the Tarkaton leads them to Shang Tsung's lab. When they do get to the lab, they find Mileena seemingly captured, with Shang Tsung preparing to inject her with a serum extracted from Baraka's marrow. They defeat Shang Tsung and his followers, Tanya and Rain, and free Mileena, though it's revealed that the sorcerer was actually helping her, and the serum was intended to help contain her disease. More chaos ensues, and in the fighting that breaks out, Mileena stabs Kenshi in both eyes, permanently blinding him, which, unfortunately for him, is the state that we have usually seen him in Mortal Kombat games. Soon, Kitana, Shao, and Goro, one of Shao's warriors, enter the scene and take the Earthrealmers captive. Shao and Shang Tsung declare that these events only serve to prove that the former's fears were true. That, true to what he was told by that unnamed sorcerer, Earthrealm does intend to invade Outworld. At this point, it's also revealed that the sorcerer was none other than Quan Chi, who remains a bit of a nuisance even in this universe. And as if that bombshell wasn't enough, it's also revealed that Shao, Quan Chi, and Shang Tsung have actually been in cahoots all along and have been acting on the orders of a mysterious so-called benefactor. Meanwhile, the Earthrealmers and Baraka are taken to the flesh pits of Outworld, where they meet Syzoth, aka Reptile, their jailer, who, it turns out, is only in service to Shang Tsung because the sorcerers hold his family captive. Syzoth also has unique shape-shifting abilities, because of which he was branded a freak by his people, until Shang Tsung discovered him and started using him as a showpiece oddity with which to make some money. After he started becoming more powerful, though, he took his family captive and forced him to teach him his shape-shifting powers. However, it's soon revealed to Syzoth by Shang Tsung that his family has been dead for a long time, after which the jailer helps the Earthrealmers escape from the flesh pits. Following their escape, they find themselves in the Living Forest, a place of awesome vistas where the trees are said to hold the souls of Outworld's ancestors. In the forest, the group meets with and allies Ashra, though not before a fight due to a misunderstanding, a demoness of Netherrealm who has made it her mission to eradicate all other demons, so that Outworld and Earthrealm don't have to suffer the fate of her own tortured realm. Ashra reveals to them that Quan Chi has been building Soul Stealers, devices capable of killing thousands and even millions if used together by stealing their souls, something she suspects he intends to do on Earth. The group tracks down Quan Chi and engages him and his allies, Natara, Havoc, Darius, and Serena in combat, prior to which Johnny gives Sento to Kenshi. During the battle that follows, however, Quan Chi is able to use a Soul Stealer, using which he absorbs all the souls of the Living Forest trees and combines them into a single entity known as Ermac. Kenshi, now armed with magical astral vision thanks to Sento, fights Ermac, in the process imbuing Sento with some of Ermac's telekinetic abilities, before finally he and Ashra are able to defeat the being. At this point, Ashra is able to shut down and destroy the Soul Stealer, after which Quan Chi is neutralized. The group, with the exception of Baraka, decides to return to Earthrealm and tell Liu Kang about what they've discovered. At this point in the game, meanwhile, it's also revealed that Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, and Shao's benefactor is none other than Kronika. How exactly is she alive? Well, we'll get to that later, but in the here and now, Shang Tsung tells her that everything is proceeding as planned. The Soul Stealers are under construction. She has access to an entire army, and more on that in a bit. And on top of that, Shang Tsung has also supposedly figured out a way to corrupt the Lin Kuei and turn them to Kronika's side. Meanwhile, back in Outworld, with the help of Syzoth, Johnny, Kenshi, Kung Lao, and Ashra make their way through a large and packed festival. And though their initial plan is to avoid alerting anyone to their presence, since they are now fugitives in this realm, thanks to the lies of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, it's not long before they get spotted. Syzoth battles and defeats the likes of Kitana, Li Mei, Chameleon, and Tanya, and later with the help of Johnny, Ashra, and Kung Lao, he also defeats Shao and Goro, after which the group is able to use a portal to make its quick exit to Earthrealm. Back on Earthrealm, the group rendezvous with Liu Kang, who laments the injuries of Qinshi, saying that he had hoped he would have been able to avoid being blinded this time, something that obviously confuses the others who have no knowledge of their lives in the other universes. Meanwhile, alarm bells are instantly set off for Liu Kang when he's told that Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have formed a deadly alliance in this universe as well, something that has had disastrous consequences for all concerned in previous timelines, and as such, something that Liu Kang and Geras have been desperately hoping would not have to have been dealt with in this new era. Things become even more complicated when Geras tells Liu Kang that the Deadly Alliance's mysterious commander is a woman, though her identity still remains unknown to him. Liu Kang, of course, instantly suspects that Kronika might be behind this, though Geras shoots that idea down, telling him that Titans who die can never be reborn in any way, which means Kronika, who was killed by Liu Kang, is very much permanently dead. So who exactly is it that's been pulling the strings behind the scenes and commanding the Deadly Alliance to do their bidding, while posing as Kronika no less? For now, that remains unknown, but one thing that Liu Kang is able to deduce without any doubt is this, that contrary to what he believed, he wasn't the only survivor of the previous timeline, and this other unknown survivor, someone who seems to be personally gunning for him, is probably the one who's behind this entire mess. Liu Kang meets with warriors of the Lin Kuei clan, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Smoke, and tasks them with tracking down the Soul Stealers that are under construction on Earthrealm and destroying them before they can be used. The clan sets off on its quest, though unbeknownst to Liu Kang, trouble is brewing within its ranks, at the very top it turns out, as the new Grandmaster of the Lin Kuei, Sub-Zero, has ambitions that don't sit well with some of his followers, his younger brother Kuai Liang, aka Scorpion, and Smoke in particular. Sub-Zero has grown increasingly frustrated with the traditions that he feels have shackled the clan for so long, and those frustrations are beginning to boil over in conjunction with his hunger for fame, riches, and power. Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Smoke are able to track down a massive fortress at the site where Shang Tsung and Quan Chi's Soul Stealers are being built, and as they begin their infiltration of the structure, predictably enough, they run into plenty of resistance. As they're making their way in, they are forced to fight with the likes of Natara, Ermac, and Serena before finally coming face to face with the Deadly Alliance duo itself. And though the fight initially seems to be going in the hero's favor, Sub-Zero's ambitions soon throw a wrench into the works. Their battle is interrupted by the arrival of Shao and his forces, who, instead of killing his foes, attempts to lure Sub-Zero to their side by arguing that the Lin Kuei has been constantly held back by Liu Kang, and that if this clan should choose to switch sides, that will no longer be the case. When Sub-Zero questions whether the Deadly Alliance's plan is even going to succeed, Shao reveals that the Soul Stealers are only one part of that equation, and that they also plan to revive the Dragon Army of Emperor Yang, a feared and powerful conqueror that used to rule over Outworld thousands of years ago. Does this Emperor Yang have anything to do with the Dragon King Onaga from past Mortal Kombat timelines? Well, for now, that is up in the air. Back to the story at hand, though. Upon learning that Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, Shao, and their forces will invade Earthrealm with the combined powers of the Dragon Army as well as all of their Soul Stealers, Sub-Zero turns, revealing to his younger brother that he intentionally let their father die so that he could lead the Lin Kuei clan in his stead. Sub-Zero pledges himself and the clan to the bad guys, at which point Scorpion decides to stand against his brother. Taking on Shao, Sub-Zero, Quan Chi, and others in combat, and burning Havoc's face off to make him more familiar to series fans, Scorpion is able to escape with Smoke by his side. We'll switch gears here though, because at this point in Mortal Kombat 1's story, Liu Kang kicks some important things into motion. As he witnesses the Soul Stealers being activated, he's also told by Geras that the Deadly Alliance's mystery benefactor hails from a different timeline that's running parallel to their own. With that mystery deepening and with Shang Tsung and Quan Chi's plan well and truly in motion, Liu Kang decides that to save both Earthrealm and Outworld, he needs to ensure that both realms are fighting together. With that in mind, he travels to Outworld, where he's met almost instantly by Li Mei. Though she tried to stop him at first, Liu Kang tells her that Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have been deceiving Empress Sindel, and that they only helped Mileena to hide that deception. Convinced by Liu Kang's appeal, Li Mei joins up with him and helps him get to the palace. Along the way, they take on many foes in combat, including the likes of Reiko, Motaro, Tanya, Kitana, and Mileena, before finally meeting with Sindel herself. During their fight, however, just as Mileena is about to lose control of herself to her affliction, Li Mei subdues her and helps with the administering of the serum that holds her disease at bay. In response, Sindel agrees to hear Liu Kang out. Liu Kang takes her to Shang Tsung's lab, where, seeing the plentiful evidence of the sorcerer's twisted and depraved experiments, Sindel realizes that Liu Kang is telling the truth. Though their conversation is interrupted when General Shao arrives on the scene, accompanied by his forces. That's not all though, because much to Liu Kang's surprise, he also wields the Amulet of Shinnok. The amulet obviously never existed in the current timeline, though it seems like it was handed to Shao by the Deadly Alliance's mystery benefactor. Using the amulet, Shao traps many within it, Kitana and Mileena among them, but together Liu Kang, Li Mei, and Sindel are able to defeat him and free those that were trapped in the amulet. Afterwards, Sindel agrees to help Liu Kang, and Earthrealm and Outworld finally join forces to fight together against Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, Shao, and their followers. At this point in Mortal Kombat 1's story, things are well and truly starting to come to a head. The combined forces of Earthrealm and Outworld march on the Deadly Alliance's fortress. As the battle rages on, one particular fight that stands out sees Mileena defeating Ermac, at which point the soul of her father, King Jared, who was pulled into Ermac when the being was created from the souls in Outworld's living forest, takes control of the being. Jared is reunited with Sindel and his two daughters, and they continue to push on into the fortress. At this point, however, it's finally revealed who the Deadly Alliance's mystery benefactor is. Much to Liu Kang's surprise, it turns out that the benefactor is none other than Shang Tsung, but the Shang Tsung of the previous timeline, the one that Liu Kang fought and defeated at the end of Mortal Kombat 11, Aftermath. The old Shang Tsung reveals that when the two of them fought each other, they ripped the very fabric of time apart, following which two timelines were created and have been running parallel to each other. One where Liu Kang won, and one where Shang Tsung was the one who instead emerged victorious and became a Titan. And upon learning about the existence of Liu Kang's timeline, Titan Shang Tsung decided to destroy it completely and merge it with his own in order to make himself that much stronger. Realizing that the Titan has been using them as pawns in his own destructive scheme, one that doesn't align with their own ambitions, the Deadly Alliance turns against him. Titan Shang Tsung, however, has other aces up his sleeve. From his own timeline, he summons his followers, who, it turns out, are dark versions of familiar characters, including the likes of Raiden, Sindel, Natara, Geras, and many, many others. The battle between the newly realigned forces of Dark and Light commences, and as it rages on, Sindel is killed by her own dark doppelganger. As she dies, however, her soul is absorbed by Ermac, allowing Jared and Sindel to continue being together, even in death. Meanwhile, the heir apparent Mileena steps up as the new Empress of Outworld. Things continue to take a turn for the worse, however, because Titan Shang Tsung is able to awaken the Dragon Army. As the army starts pouring through portals and onto the battlefield, under Liu Kang's orders, the forces of light retreat into the hills. There, young Shang Tsung, now fighting by their side, suggests to Liu Kang that there might be more than two timelines in existence, following which Liu Kang asks Geras to try and seek them out, if they do indeed exist. That's not all though, because as Liu Kang comes to the realization that only a Titan will have the power to defeat Titan Shang Tsung, Geras tells him that there's a way for him to reclaim the power. Rather than dissipating the power, unbeknownst to Liu Kang, Geras collected it and hid it away, suspecting that there might come a time when Liu Kang might need it once again. And so the battle resumes again, with the forces of Outworld and Earthrealm attempting to fight against not only the Dragon Army, but also against their own dark doppelgangers from Titan Shang Tsung's timeline, while also attempting to close the portals so that more of the army cannot pour through. At this point, the game turns its attention to the Deadly Alliance. Together, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi fight through many in Titan Shang Tsung's forces, including Dark Kenshi, Dark Scorpion, Dark Rain, and others, before realizing that Dark Shao's life force is what's been powering the portals and keeping them open. Together, they succeed in fighting Dark Shao and killing him, thus closing the portals. But though more of the Dragon Army cannot join the battle, there are still plenty in Titan Shang Tsung's ranks who need to be dealt with. Meanwhile, by this point, Liu Kang has reclaimed his powers as a Titan, and using them, he searches for more timelines, and discovers that there are indeed others whose existence they were all unaware of. He meets Titan Kitana, who in a different timeline emerged as the sole survivor of the previous timeline. Liu Kang and Kitana embrace after having been forced to spend an eternity apart, following which he also summons Titan Raiden and Titan Kung Lao. The four of them agree to join forces and stop Titan Shang Tsung, though their meeting is interrupted when the sorcerer himself arrives with his dark forces in tow. Now hell-bent on destroying and conquering all timelines for himself, Titan Shang Tsung takes the four on in combat, though they are able to drive him and his forces back to his own reality. Afterward, they decide that the only course of action that they can now follow is to gather an army of Titans and travel to Titan Shang Tsung's timeline and defeat him once and for all in a final climactic battle. That all culminates in the Mortal Kombat franchise's second Battle of Armageddon, with the Pyramid of Argus in Titan Shang Tsung's timeline serving as the stage for this conflict. The light and dark Titans take on each other in furious duels, and Liu Kang ascends the Pyramid of Argus, accompanied by a Titan that is chosen by the player. After a series of grueling battles, the two of them engage in a final fight against Titan Shang Tsung and Titan Quan Chi, and are finally able to defeat them once and for all, bringing the battle to an end. Liu Kang sends his allies back to their own realities before returning to his own. In the aftermath, things start looking up for our heroes back in Liu Kang's timeline. Raiden and Kung Lao have returned to the Wuxi Academy, where they're training a new group of initiates, while Kenshi has started seeing progress in his mission to revive the Taira clan. Meanwhile, Johnny Cage has finally managed to turn his career around and is now planning to direct a cinematic universe that will tell the story of Earthrealm, Outworld, and the other timelines. Liu Kang, meanwhile, has been helping Scorpion and Smoke in establishing a new clan in Japan, known as the Shirai Ryu clan. Not all is completely well, though. As Mortal Kombat 1 draws to a close in its final scene, it takes us back to the Pyramid of Argus, where Titan Havoc, in conjunction with other Dark Titans, seems to be planning something sinister as well, setting the stage for the next Mortal Kombat game. And that's where Mortal Kombat 1's story ends. Now, we're on the cusp of Mortal Kombat 1 Khaos Reigns' launch, with the expansion set to continue the franchise's new and rebooted timeline with an entirely new chapter. Picking up from where Mortal Kombat 1 ended, the expansion will see Titan Havoc wreaking havoc on the Mortal Kombat universe, while we also know some fan-favorite characters are going to return to the fray with Sector and Cyrax, which means the Lin Kuei and its cyber initiative will likely be a big part of the story once again, as well as Noob Saibot, which means Bihan's story, and that of other characters tied to him, is also going to get that much more fascinating, or so we hope at least. Our questions are many, as you might imagine, but thankfully, with Khaos Reigns out imminently, it won't be long before we get answers to at least some of them. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.